Are you preparing for the challenges you may face this winter? If so, this video might help. Hey, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene, and we are the Provident Preppers. So a couple weeks ago, we taught a preparedness class for Syracuse City's Preparedness Fair, and it was all about how to survive winter when the power goes out. We were asked to do this by Judy Masonry, who serves on the Syracuse City Disaster Preparedness Committee. And today she sent me a copy of the Zoom of this presentation. And we just thought that it would be a really good thing for all of our viewers to have. So this class is about an hour long, right? So it's a bit long, but as we're looking forward to this winter, I think we've got a lot of challenges, and being able to be prepared, to be self-reliant, and to be okay when the power goes out is really important.
It truly is. So, although it may be a little long, we hope you'll stick with us. Grab a paper and a pencil or pen, and let's take some notes so that you are ready for whatever's coming.
So with that, we welcome Kylene and Jonathan from the Provident Prepper. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here, especially on this momentous day. I hope that we are all reflecting on those that were lost and those who keep us safe, and that we never forget the lessons of being prepared and making sure that we can be resilient.
We are so excited to be here, you guys. This is a topic that is near and dear to our heart.
It is, absolutely. And the topic we're discussing today is what? No electricity? How do I stay warm in the winter? And this is a significant topic, and especially after the Texas and the southern states situation that happened in February. This is a big issue that a lot of people are thinking about. They are concerned about it. There is that possibility. It was just about a year ago, northern Utah had some serious storms, and I don't know if you had those storms where the power was knocked out for some people for several days. So these things can happen. We are pretty spoiled. We think that life should just go on, and the utility companies do a pretty good job of keeping us in power, but there are situations that are beyond their control, and we need to be prepared for that.
All right.
So just to kick this off, let's just imagine, and you can look at the list here and think about, some of the things that might happen. Earthquakes are something that are significant for us. That could create a situation, as well as winter storms. There are man-made disasters and there are natural disasters. There's pandemic. We're just hopefully going to get through this pandemic. But if this pandemic were much more severe, we'd have a situation where they couldn't keep up with repairs. So many people would be out, unable to work. When there's problems, they can't get them fixed, and that could potentially create either a short-term or a long-term power outage. And we have to be prepared for these things, to think about them in advance, because trying to deal with it right at the present time doesn't work very well. So let's take a few steps and prepare.
So a few months ago, our power is usually really reliable. And then all of a sudden, we have 3 power outages in 1 month. It was just kind of crazy. And this is actually a photo that I snapped of Jonathan, because we work from home, right? And I snapped this of him during this power outage, and it was kind of fun. But the impact that a power outage can have on us there's a whole list. Do you want to go ahead and take that?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, there are some comfort issues. And if we're doing this in the middle of winter, if we're going to have a winter power outage, we're definitely going to have some comfort issues. Those are things that we can mitigate, but we'd have to prepare. Obviously, lighting, heating, it's another part of what we're talking about today.
And let me say something about the lighting. So the power outage, actually, this is in the morning, but it was surprising how dark the house was even in the morning.
It was
so lighting is a huge deal.
Very overcast day. And so, we needed a little extra light just to be able to see. Obviously, cooking, refrigeration, our ability to work, whether we're working from home or working in an office setting. those are all impacted, and sometimes communications are impacted as well. So anything electric, obviously, we're going to have some significant things to deal with.
Now, one of the things before we get started, I think it's important to really carefully think about the people that you have responsibility for, because if you have somebody who's elderly or compromised or young, you have to be much more careful than if you are just preparing for some healthy people that can handle the cold. This is my father-in-law who has passed since then, but there's no way that he could have handled a power outage, both temperature-wise, and he needed his oxygen, and there's a whole bunch of different things. So carefully consider and prepare for the needs of those that you might have responsibility for.
Then you can consider some kind of backup power options, and there's several of them out there we'll talk about as we go through this. The first thing you need to do if you're going to have some backup power is you need to figure out how much power you really need. In many cases, you just need to run a few critical loads. We're obviously, in most cases, not going to try and power our entire house. There are things like the natural gas generators that hook into your home that sometimes can do that. But even then, you have to kind of prioritize and decide, what is it that I need to run? One of the ways that you can do that is with something like this little electricity monitor. You can plug this into the wall and then plug in whatever you want to be able to run. And it will tell you on an instantaneous basis how much energy that's using in volts, amps, and watts. And you can plug it in and leave it for a month, like I do with my freezer. I just plugged my freezer into it because obviously the freezer is turning on and it's turning off, it's turning on and turning off. So what I want to know is, okay, over a day and over a week and over a month, how much energy is that using? And that will vary a little bit. Obviously in the summertime, it's going to use more than it will in the winter. It's sitting in our garage. So it's in the winter, it's going to be relatively cool, and that will reduce that need a little bit. But these kinds of things can help us figure that out. You can also look online. They'll give you some ballpark estimates based on whatever you put in there, but it's not going to be exact because it's not the exact appliance. And you can look on the labels for whatever device you're wanting to power. They usually give you some idea of about how many watts or amps that will draw. So figure out what your needs are, and then you can plan for those. Then you can look at some kind of backup battery banks, power stations, and these range all the way from up there in the left upper corner, the little phone chargers. This will charge my phone about 5 times. So, you know, it's not a big deal. It's not going to hold a lot of energy, but in a crisis situation, being able to recharge that phone may be significant. Down in the lower left there, you can see a humbless power generator, a solar power station. And these are basically a big battery that you can store energy in. When you have household power, you keep that charged. And then when the power is out, they have solar panels to keep that charged. Obviously, there are limitations on how much energy it can put out and how much battery storage. And if you're interested in doing something like that, you figure out again how much you're going to need, and then you can size a power station to meet that need. And the power station market right now is going crazy. There's a lot of them out on the market, a lot of different names, a lot of different sizes and capabilities. So, and you can connect with us if you have a question about that, if there's things you don't understand, but to make sure you get what you need.
And the one in the middle is mine. This is underneath my desk, and it is a backup battery for my computer and my server so that when the power goes down, I can continue to work. And if it's extended, it allows me time to safely shut down everything without losing any data. And when you're working from home, that's significant.
Yeah. The two systems on the right-hand side there are large home scale battery banks. Obviously, these are fairly expensive and they do require some maintenance. But for those people that are off grid, this is how they do that, is they have these large batteries. So somewhere in that range, maybe there's something that will work for you to either meet medical needs or, you know, everything from phone charging to medical needs to even larger things. And obviously cost is a factor in there. So you just have to decide what works for you and what you need and then make that happen. Okay, we talked a little bit about the medical needs, and this to me is one of the most critical things. I mean, we can get by without a lot of things, but for someone who has medical needs, this happens to be my mother's oxygen concentrator, and she doesn't need it all the time, but it really helps her, especially at night. So the ability to run this equipment is critical, and for some people it is life or death. And so make sure that you have that need covered. There are ways to do this. Again, there's the little power station. I've got it plugged into just a small portable solar panel. You can see it right there on the right. It's just a little teeny suitcase, but it can provide some significant power. That one in that case is only 60 watts. So it's not going to get you far, but it would do, you know, run some loads for you. And here are the solar panels that came with that humbless unit. So they're larger. You can see the cord, and we're just running it in through our window there in the solarium and into the power station to keep that charged. So, and we talked about the power station market. As I said, there are so many units out on the market today in a whole range of sizes and capabilities. This one happens to be the EcoFlow River Pro. And this one's kind of unique because you can add an extra battery to it. You can either just use the base unit, or you can add an extra battery for more capacity. And you can see some of the loads that we could run off of that. Again, a piece of medical equipment there in the middle, that little
Nebulizer.
Yeah, the nebulizer. We can charge lighting, computers, phones, and a whole variety of things. And we have a video that you could look at, the Prepper Power Station, that talks specifically about this one, and we'll have other power stations that we'll be showing, like I say, in a variety of sizes.
And one thing, if this is something that interests you, so EcoFlow has because September's the month of preparedness. So EcoFlow has all of their stuff on sale. And in addition, if you use the promo code Provident, they give you an extra 3% off. So if this is something that you're interested in, this month is actually a good month to pull the plug on that, or to get busy on that.
Yeah. Here you can see us using this power station to run the freezer. And you can see the red and black cord going out to the solar panels. So again, if you have any questions about how to size these, because it is kind of complicated for some people, if you haven't got a lot of experience with electrical things, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yeah, John loves this. He's such a geek.
I am a geek.
He's such a geek.
Now you see a lot of solar on homes, rooftop solar. In most cases, this isn't going to help anyone in an emergency. This is grid tied in most cases, so that this goes straight to the grid, and these people in this home aren't going to have any benefit if the power goes down. So it seems counterintuitive that you would have all that power on your roof and not be able to use it. However, if you are thinking about doing something like that, find a contractor that will work with you on a backup power system. Some will provide like a single plug. Our neighbor has a single plug that they can use, so they could be running their fridge or their freezer. Obviously, only during the day. It's not going to do anything for them at night, but at least they would be able to keep that fridge or freezer cold from that one plug. Others will put in a backup battery system for you. So some contractors will do this. They'll work with you on some backup power. Some will not. You just have to know what you're getting and make sure that if you want that capability, that you find somebody that will provide it. And obviously there's the fuel power generators. These have some advantages. In general, they are more powerful than like the solar power stations. However, you have to have fuel. You have to be able to store that fuel safely and legally. And then once you're out of fuel, if you run out of fuel and can't get any more, then it's just a nice lawn ornament. So, you know, you have to make sure also there are safety issues with the fuel powered generators. You have to make sure that you are not going to have a carbon monoxide issue to add to your other power outage issues. So, you know, they all have upsides and downsides. The other thing about the fuel power generators is they do make some noise, and sometimes that means you're advertising, hey everybody, I've got power, and perhaps making yourself a target. So think about that. There's great, really good, like the Honda inverter generators. They're quieter, they're more efficient. So, you know, look at your possibilities and find something that works for you.
Okay, now we're going to move to emergency lighting. And like with everything else, you need to assess at the very beginning what your lighting requirements might be, right? Think about personal or task lighting, area lighting that lights up a room, hands-free lighting so that you can perform different tasks, and flameless. I personally, you know, we had this experiment that we did where we turned off our power in the middle of January, and I had originally planned, this was years ago, but I had originally planned to use a lot of candles. And we found that the kids kept sticking everything flammable into those candles.
And sometimes wives do that too. She happens to be a pyro.
I do happen to be that, but we're not talking about me. Anyway, so really evaluate your needs and the length that you're going to need this. Are you going to need it for hours, days, months, or you have no clue? So that all enters into your choices when it comes to lighting. Kind of like we discussed, open flame. In some ways, it's nice because it creates kind of this ambiance, but I would not have that for my primary source because of the fire danger and because it's a fuel that will run out, right? You can only store so many candles. Battery powered devices, and it's kind of the same thing. We've got fabulous battery powered devices that will last for a long period of time on a battery with all the new LEDs, but they are limited to the number of batteries that you have and you can store.
Yeah.
Chemical lighting. Now, these are just a soft light and you really can't see much with them. They're disposable, you know, they're only one-time use. But I have found that they bring great comfort, especially to the children. Whenever the grandchildren sleep at grandma's house, I always pull out the glow sticks and I give them a glow stick to sleep with because it just is incredibly comforting. And children, when we have power outages and scary things going on, it's really important that you think about ways to comfort them because sometimes we're all wrapped up as adults into adulting and we don't realize the trauma that our children are going through. And so that is one of the reasons why I really like to have some chemical lighting. And these are just glow sticks that every around the 4th of July and Pioneer Day, they sell these big packages of them for really inexpensive, and we stock up on them. There is a video all about grid down lighting that you might want to check out. My favorite by far is solar lighting because it's always ready. I mean, it's in this window behind me. I keep these lights in there. In fact, you can see it, I think, in the next slide. I just keep them in there so that they're always ready. They're always charged. They can charge your phone. And Hybrid Light is an exceptional brand. If you go there and use the promo code Provident, they have agreed to give all of our viewers a 20% off, which is fantastic. But we have had lights that have, I mean, lasted with all the abuse of the kids and the grandkids, what, 8, 9 years?
Yeah.
I mean, a long time. And that doesn't mean that it always will, but these are super durable and it takes very little to recharge them.
One of the things I like about these is the ability to charge the phone. That's that most of these will come with a little port that you can use that solar panel to charge your phone as well as the light itself. So, and
one of those is a Bluetooth speaker, and yeah, they've got some really, really cool things. So
let's talk a little bit about water storage. This is a very important topic. In most cases, you're going to continue to have water, but there are situations where water systems will go down. If you're in an area that needs pumping.
Well, just like Texas, right?
Yeah.
A lot of Texas last year didn't have water.
They didn't have water. Either the lines were frozen or the power is down and they couldn't get pumps working. And so having some water on hand is critically important for drinking, for hygiene, for medical and first aid stuff. For sanitation, for food preparation, water is critical. And we always encourage everybody to have at least 2 gallons per person per day for at least 2 weeks. The more water, the better. Obviously, there's space issues that you have to deal with, but find a way to have water and then just keep building that supply to the extent that you can financially and as far as space goes.
So with the videos, we have some that you might be particularly interested in to really help you understand this subject. We have a whole series called the Newbie Prepper series, and Prep Step 5 is all about water, and it takes you through the beginning. I don't know anything about storing water, and helps you understand how to be able to store water. And then there's another video, Emergency Water Storage, where we really get into water storage, and we go in depth, and we talk about some of the best ways to do it. And then the best long-term treatment methods is if you're storing water in a 55-gallon drum, we talk about how to clean it, what to put in it, and all that good stuff. So that's a really good video too.
And one thing to consider in this is making sure that you have a variety of sizes. You know,
Yeah.
I used to be able to carry a 55-gallon drum, not really, but you know, I like to think that I could. But you know, I'm not a water bottle guy. I don't like water bottles, but having a couple of cases of those that you could throw in the car on short notice, or just have them really easy to access, I'm a fan of that. But having it in a variety of sizes so that you can take it or leave it. Obviously, the larger barrels are more efficient as far as getting a lot in them.
So, and I'm going to run back to here real quick. We recently, well, I guess it's been a while now, but we were able to get these big tanks from Water Prepared, and you can't see it in this picture, but there's 360 gallons?
320 gallons.
320 gallons. And it fits in this really tiny little space next to our water heaters. They're real tall, and anyway, I've just super been pleased with those, but those are very pricey, and you can store water without it having to be pricey. So just kind of depends on your budget.
Then the ability to filter water, because at some point, if this is extended or whatever situation is extended, you are going to run out of your stored water. Your stored water is your best resource. Then you're going to have to find other sources, and the ability to filter that and make it usable, to treat it and disinfect it, is so vital. So we have a video, Emergency Water Filters, that kind of goes through some of the basics, some of the important points on water filters. And there are a lot of great water filters out on the market, but finding the one that's right for you, hopefully this video can help you get there, or you can connect with us.
So, and in this video, there's also a post if you prefer it in writing, but we created it so that somebody like me, I understand what to look for in a water filter, right? And what's going to meet my needs, and how to really compare them, because they are not all the same. And it's really important that you understand that. Okay. For a power outage, we really want to have stocked, ready to eat foods that pretty much you open the can or the bottle and eat. They need to be shelf stable, because if you lose refrigeration, all of your food will be gone if you're unable to save it. And that's for another video, or another show. But everyday foods, just easy to prepare. Make sure that if you're doing things like freeze-dried foods, that you have liquid for preparation, and you want a minimum of 2 weeks. I think 3 months is a much better target of just shelf-stable foods that are ready to eat, because that way you can get through just about anything. Now, we are crazy, and a couple of years ago, we decided that if we're going to tell people to do this, we need to really be able to live it, right? So we went for 90 days without grocery shopping or any fast food.
Or restaurants. I mean, it was strictly from home.
It was rough. It was rough.
Actually, I thought we got through it pretty well. But one of the rules was we could barter. And so we had the ability to barter, but we couldn't accept donations. So,
but okay, so I have got really good friends who came with, because I ran out of chocolate, right? And
that was the most serious thing that happened.
Was so serious. But so I have friends who, like one of them, she was so sweet. She came over with these chocolate chips, bags of chocolate chips, and she said, I need some kale. Can I trade you some kale from your garden for chocolate chips?
That was lame.
That was a true friend, right? And our son, really wanted to have fresh butter, right? And so he made arrangements with a friend of ours who has a cow to go milk his cow once a week in exchange for some of the garden vegetables and fruits that we had. And it was really interesting to watch the transition. But I think one of the things that this did to me over that 3 months was I was very much in a mindset of kind of impulse buying and get it now and all that. And as this time progressed, suddenly I had less of an addiction to things that were at the market. And we were very happy, making sandwiches on homemade bread and just, always knowing that, like, we taught a class up north and we couldn't buy anything to eat. And, we were a few hours away from home, and the class, it was an all morning thing. And I had to just pack something to eat, because usually we'd go to lunch or something and kind of celebrate. And there was none of that, but it was a real change of mental state for me. And we haven't actually ever reverted back.
Yeah.
It was good.
And part of this is having the ability to grow a lot of your own food, or some of your own food, whatever your situation dictates, but having that ability to grow some food. And our garden was able to help us get through this and provided a lot of great nutrition.
Yeah. Now emergency heating. This is so important. Okay, take out your paper and take notes. This is it.
Okay. So one of the first things we want to do if the power goes out and it is cold outside is we want to make sure that we have sealed up cold air entry points. Now, ideally, you're going to do this in advance. You're going to go out today and you're going to say, okay, winter is coming. Where do we have cold air leaking into our home? Whether it's a window that leaks a little bit, a door that leaks a little bit, around plugs or light switches, sometimes you feel a little cold air coming in. Whatever it is, let's fix those things now. Have the ability to insulate windows. You can see here, we just demonstrated how you could insulate windows with some plastic and some painter's tape. We recommend painter's tape over duct tape because it's going to keep your paint better than
duct tape's going to destroy your paint.
It off. But having some of these things on hand, you can see that we simulated what we would do to this door. It's a pretty good door, but it has a few spots that leak a little bit of air. So you can seal that up if you don't need to use that door. Obviously, you can't be completely airtight. You've got to have some air exchange to keep your indoor air healthy. But the ability to keep in the warm air and keep the cold out is important.
So there's a video, Survive a Winter Power Outage. That's a really good one if you would like more of the details about some of the life-saving tips. But when it comes to insulating your windows, you have a tremendous amount of heat lost through your windows. And when we had turned off our power those years ago, I had this great plan and I was going to put cardboard in all of the windows. But that made my home super dark and it was very depressing. And I found that over time, boy, by the end, I was not a nice person because I was cold, it was dark, and I was hungry. And so make sure that when you're thinking about ways to insulate your windows, use something that will let in light. You know, there's a lot of people who spray water on it and stick bubble wrap, the kind of bubble wrap that like you cushion packing boxes with. But just think about the light thing because it really is important.
Yes, yes. And the cardboard did do a good job of insulating, but it had that side effect. And one thing I should have mentioned on the windows, they are truly a really weak point. Not only are they subject to breakage, and you need to be able to cover those for that reason if the windows break, say in an earthquake, but they have an R value of 1 or 2, and your walls have an R value of usually 13 to 19 at least. So you can see they really are a critical thing that you need to consider.
Okay, now this is the one takeaway that we really want you to remember if you remember nothing else, and that is to create a microenvironment. That we first got this idea from a friend of ours whose parents had survived the Great Alaskan Earthquake. They were in Alaska and their home was still safe to be in, but the fireplace was not safe to use. and they had no power and no ability to heat their home. And this is dead winter in Alaska. And so what they did is they set up the family tent in the living room, and that is how they survived. And when we were experimenting with all this, when we turned off the power, I had, we talked about this. And so I'd set up little pup tents for the kids in the family room. And we have twin girls, and I don't remember, they were maybe 5 or so. And then we had a 6-year-old and an 18-month-old that we put in the other tent. The boys and the girls were in their own, and they had these really nice sleeping bags. I'd put them in these big old blanket sleeper kind of things. And then I tucked them in there, and I wanted my own bed. So my bed was piled with 5 or 6 blankets, and Jonathan was my heater. And I went to sleep in there. In the middle of the night, I sat up terrified that I had killed my children and they had frozen to death. And I went running out to the family room, and I unzipped that tent, and the kids were laying on top of their sleeping bags going, they were so hot, right? The microenvironments work really, really well. So remember this.
And you could feel that when you open that zipper, you could feel this wave of heat come out. It was truly amazing and educational for us.
Yeah. And now this is a picture of a family, actually, when the polar vortex happened in Texas, right? They sent this to me because they had watched the video, and when they were trying to figure out how to keep their family warm. And so this is how they did it. And, so many people commented on that video that this helped. I mean, they didn't think it would, but it helped so very much. So do not underestimate the power. And if you don't have a tent, improvise, sleep underneath your kitchen table with blankets over it that have created a tent, or in the bottom bunk of a bed and put blankets over the top. Do whatever you can do to create some kind of a micro environment. There was actually somebody who used a cardboard box, like a refrigerator box, to accomplish it, because they happened to have that, but they had nothing else. So they were like this homeless person sleeping inside their own home, but they were staying warm. This is just a video that goes through, these are the kids at this age in one of those pup tents. But it goes step by step through that experience that we had where we turned off the power, and you'll learn what a nice person I am. But I think it's really important, if you want to get in depth how to stay warm, this video is a really good one to go through. Another thing is making sure that you're dressed appropriately. In Texas, one of the problems is that that's a warm climate, and some people were telling us that they didn't even have warm winter clothes. Now, or clothes or coats or anything. So here in Utah, I mean, we've got warm clothes because that's our climate, but it was completely different for them. So make sure you have your base layer that wicks away the moisture, a middle layer that helps to retain the body heat, and then an outer shell that will shield and protect you from weather. And by dressing in layers like this, you can change depending on how warm you are, because we don't want you to sweat, right? Because sweat is so dangerous.
Yeah, that'll take the heat away from you. So you find that balance. You can layer on or layer off as you need.
And when you have a power outage and you're trying to stay warm, people don't think about this. You want to be active and you want to socialize, because you will be happier and you will be warmer. So make sure that you check on your neighbors, right? Is there somebody that you need to invite into your home? Or if you don't have the resources to stay warm, do you have a friend where you could go hang out with them for a while so that you could warm up and you could be together and play games or work on a project, something to keep you busy and to keep you moving so that you'll stay warm. Warm drinks and hot foods. Look at your food storage. On a regular basis, we don't eat canned soup because we eat a lot of our food from scratch. That's just what we do. But I always purchase some of the canned soups when it goes on the case lot sales, because that is so easy to warm up and so quick. So we want to have that during a power outage. And if we don't eat those, then what I do is every year when we have the food bank drives, I donate it to the food bank and then buy new for our storage. So, and that's just an idea of how to keep that rotated and bless other people's lives. Now we want to talk about some safe alternative heat sources because, yeah, we've talked about ways to stay as warm as you can without them, but man, it makes all the difference. So believe it or not, little tea lights can be super helpful. And one of the things that's nice about them is if you live in an apartment, if you have a small budget, if you don't have the resources to do any of the other things, this can really help you. This is just a little emergency can heater. And I think this can had nuts come in. And I don't remember what was originally in it, but it's a little bit shorter than a number 10 can. It had a nice plastic lid. And I just store the tea lights in there and the matches. And then when you go to use it, you're going to take that out and put tea lights in the bottom of them and light them. But you would be amazed how warm that gets. And yet it's fairly safe because everything is contained inside of this little can. There's the video emergency fuel candles. If you go and look at that video, it goes into greater detail. But this is a very inexpensive way. And you can keep this in your car. One of my friends does a lot of hunting, and she's all over the place, and she has this in her car every winter so that if she gets stranded someplace, she has the ability to stay warm.
And that kind of brings up a good point is you're not going to want to heat your entire home.
Yeah.
So in a crisis winter situation, you're going to want to consolidate down into a smaller area that you can heat. And this little tea light heater isn't going to heat a whole room.
No, it's not.
You know, but it provides a little bit of localized heat. And then there's some other things that you can do. But again, you'll want to reduce the amount of footprint that you're trying to heat.
So this is another little idea that we have. This is called safe heat. Okay, not all sterno heats can be used in the home. This is one of the only ones that I am aware of that is safe to burn indoors. You could purchase it at Sam's Club. That's the cheapest place we've been able to find. It's in the catering section. But these little cans of safe heat will have 6 hours of burn time. Now, originally I got this idea offline, and they were using candles. And I just thought, okay, we just worked on this to improve it. These are little folding camp stoves. They're sterno stoves that are meant to hold these cans. And then what you do is you take a small terracotta pot and then you block the hole with a piece of something that's not flammable. So aluminum foil or something like that. And you put the other pot on top, and then you light the can. And it's easy to replace the can under here if you're using it that long. But if you look, that's a temperature probe in the top. It's 428 degrees. So this is actually too hot to touch, but you could put your hands near it and it does provide some warmth. Safe heat is really easy to store. It's safe to store. And the other really nice thing is that you could also use it to cook your food. The same setup. So it's kind of dual purpose for somebody who doesn't have much money and or lives in an apartment where they can't store much fuel. This is great. There's a video lessons from a Texas storm where we go through some of the different things that people learned from the experience in Texas. And wow, it's just great to see how ingenious these people were.
Yeah, it was really fun to interact with a lot of people in that area that were struggling and looking for ideas and some of the things that they did, not only to help themselves, but their neighbors. It was truly fun.
Yeah.
And enlightening.
It was.
This is one of our very favorites. These buddy heaters, you can get them at Walmart. You can get them at hardware stores and Cal Ranch, different places like that. These are a great indoor heat source. These are rated for indoor use, and a lot of products are not rated for that. So this makes this a very unique and an important item. These can provide a lot of heat. You can see the one on the left has the little 1 pound container. The one on the right can also use the 1 pound containers, or you can run a hose in from outside to a 20 or a whatever size tank outside. Bring that in through your window and seal that up with some insulation and some tape. And however you use these, they provide an amazing amount of heat, and they do it safely.
And they have a variety. They have smaller ones, and Mr. Buddy does a really good job with this. One of the things that you need to know about the large one, though, it takes D batteries to run the fan. And so The little one, if you're really talking about a long-term event, is a better idea.
Yeah, and it's really handy. That can be taken into the shower when you,
Well, not in the shower, but in the
not
bathroom.
in the shower, but in the bathroom when you take a shower. You just have to make sure that you store that fuel safely.
Yeah.
That's the key there.
Yes. And then there's wood burning stoves. Now the one on the left, that cook stove, is ours. And I absolutely adore this little stove. The one on the right is from a friend of mine. It's from her home. And that is the only source of heat that they have in their home and all winter long. And so a wood burning stove, if you live in a place where they are legal and you can do it, that's a great option.
So check with your local health department. I know most counties in northern Utah, you're not allowed to use these except for emergency purposes. And most people won't do it if it's just for emergency purposes, because that's a lot of money to invest for something that they might never use. So, it's a hard situation, but if you can do it, then they are an amazing tool. Absolutely amazing.
Okay, now let's talk about masonry heaters. Now, I didn't know what a masonry heater was a year ago. And now I have one and it makes me so happy. So they're very different from regular fireplaces. For ones, you build a fire once or twice a day, and it burns all at once. And so it incinerates the wood so hot that you hardly have any emissions. You're not going to see any smoke coming out of your chimney. It's kind of crazy the way it does it. But what it does is it warms all of that mass, because it's got, like, it goes up and down and around before it goes out. So all that mass is warm, and that mass will continue to warm your room for a good 12 hours or so. The oven that's above it, at first, it's a pizza oven, right? Right after the fire goes out, it's a pizza oven. And then it's a regular oven between 350 and 400 degrees. And then it's a slow cooker for several hours. And I'm super, super excited. If you're interested in anything like this, Tempcast masonry heaters, they have like the best design. I'm just sold on it. You should watch some of our upcoming videos as we start to use this and cook in it. I'm just really pleased. Okay. Sanitation.
Let's talk a little bit about our favorite topic.
Your favorite topic.
Sanitation. Something that we don't really think about a lot, again, because we're spoiled, because we just have to push the handle and everything disappears. It goes down the drain, it disappears. It's not our problem anymore. But in a crisis situation, it may be our problem. You may not have running water, or you may not have a working sewer. And so we have to prepare a little bit in advance. For alternative toilet options and other sanitation. We do have our newbie prepper step 3 sanitation video that provides a lot of enlightenment, and we have other videos that you can check out, or articles that you can read to provide some guidance on things that you need to think about and how to go about this.
So this is a toilet in our old house, right? We actually did this. This is just a kitchen garbage bag, a high quality one, so that it will not leak. And because sometimes you're just more comfortable going on your own toilet, right? We all have our favorite toilets, and that's what we gravitate to. And you just duct tape this bag onto there, and then you can use it. You can use it several times by putting something in it, whether you want to use like kitty litter or sawdust or something. And then you take the bag off and you put it in a bucket, and then you can carry it out. But it's just in the video, the sanitation video, we talk about a lot of different options, but this is one way that you can use the toilet that you already have. You could also use a wag bag in there, or there's bags you take camping, right, that will just decompose. And they have something kind of like poo powder, so that whatever liquids go in there, it solidifies them, and it also helps them so that they're no longer toxic and dangerous.
And the critical thing here is what happens after the event. You have to make sure that you take care of that. Now, in the wintertime, you could put that in a bucket and put it in a freezing place and just let it solidify, because trying to dig a hole to bury that is going to be incredibly difficult. But that is dangerous, toxic stuff that you've got to take good care of. And we don't want to put it somewhere where somebody else is going to be impacted. So these become difficult issues that have to be addressed. You have to think about this and have a plan.
Okay, so this is a simple hand washing station. When you are using limited water, that's just a little cube that has this little handle. What do you call that? I can't remember.
Spigot.
A spigot. There we go. It's got a spigot on it. And we use it for a hand washing station. Then once that water is done, you could use it either for laundry or you could use it to flush a toilet, but we save, or water plants, but we save all the water to make sure that we're making the best use of it.
Emergency cooking. Those are my cinnamon rolls that I burned.
Yeah, I did not do that.
I didn't make them, but you know, and this is where the lesson here is you have to have the experience to know how to do this. This was the first time cooking cinnamon rolls in the wood stove that you just saw. And I thought, okay, let's get that thing cranking, get it up and put as much fuel in there as I can, get it burning as fast as I can so that we can get that oven really hot. Well, that was a mistake. I didn't need it that hot, and that was the result. So
okay, but the bottoms,
it's an experience thing.
The bottoms were delicious.
The bottoms were wonderful. So once we sawed off that burnt part, the rest was good. But the experience is what we need to gain in advance so that we don't have these problems when things really matter. Carbon monoxide detectors are so critically important. I'm the safety guy.
Yes, he is.
I have to stand on my soapbox and lecture because that's who I am. I'm the safety guy. So we encourage every home to have at least one of these digital readout carbon monoxide alarms. Now, most homes have them built in with your smoke detectors, but these you don't really know if you've got carbon monoxide in there because they won't alarm until they get to a threshold level. So you can have carbon monoxide building up and not know it. But if you have these kind of digital readout meters, then you can see what's happening. In this case, you can see we put this right by our little apple box oven. And so, and
it's burning charcoal.
It burns charcoal. So it's pouring out copious amounts of carbon monoxide. So we were over limit there. And that was just to demonstrate, you know, how these things work. But don't take chances. Safety is a critical issue that we can't neglect, because then we have more casualties. Make sure you have fire extinguishers and make sure that your smoke detectors are working. So all these things are there to help us get through these storms as well as everyday life.
Okay, do y'all get that? Y'all gotta be safe. That's it. That's a lot of words to say. Y'all gotta be safe.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the other experiments that we did is we went for 30 days in the month of November,
which includes Thanksgiving,
without any electricity or natural gas to cook. And so we have a whole video series that we did on that, talking about what we learned and the process we went through. And it was really interesting for us because I think the thing that was the most prominent for me was that it's a pain. Everything takes longer. It's more work.
Are you saying we're spoiled?
I'm spoiled, and I like being spoiled.
Yep.
Anyway, so dinner, like Thanksgiving dinner, wasn't on time because you just can't gauge some of these alternative sources like you can some of the others.
Yep.
So,
but we had it, and we had a large crowd, and it worked.
It was great.
It was just a little different. We had to figure it out.
Yeah. So, okay, this is another one of those. Remember the 10th thing, the principle I really want you to take home. This is another one of those, and that is retained heat cooking. It's also called like thermal cooking, but what it is you take the food and you bring it to a boil, right? It's heated all the way through, but it's not cooked. And then you insulate it and let it continue to cook without needing to add any other fuel. So in the box on the right, in that ice chest, we have a pot that was brought to a rolling boil with a lid on it. And then we insulated it inside this blanket, inside this ice chest, and then we tucked it away and just let it finish cooking. It's kind of a miracle the way that works.
It is. And this isn't going to work for something like a roast.
Yeah.
This is soups and stews and these kinds of things where that you have all that liquid mass that helps this cooking to happen.
And then on the left here This is a commercial version. This is a, I think they call it it's a cook and carry, but I think they make it under Shuttle Chef. And now there's a whole bunch of different brands. I would actually, if you're going to purchase one that's a little bit more expensive because it will do a much better job. But inside what the carrots are in, there's a cooking vessel, and you just put that cooking vessel directly on your stove, heat it to the rolling boil, put the cooking vessel back in there, and it actually has a lid that's not on there because I wanted you to be able to see the picture, and then you close the top. Now that usually only retains the heat for about 6 hours. But if you put, like I put a baby blanket around it, and then it'll retain the heat for more like 10 or 12. So it's all about the insulation, and there's a whole video on it, retained heat, cooking magic. And seriously, go check out that video because there's so much that you can learn about this and using it in your daily life as well as.
It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating. Our first one was made out of a diaper box.
It was.
We had lots of babies.
Yeah.
And so we made it, and it would go, I think we went 16 hours once, and it was still like 170 degrees. So it was above safe
Serving temperature.
It's truly amazing what we can do.
Okay, now this is a little alcohol burner, and it's in a sterno stove. Now with alcohol, it only burns the fumes. The actual liquid doesn't burn. It doesn't cook as hot as other fuels, but it's much safer to store. We created this video where we compared the different fuels, the alcohol fuels, and it was really kind of interesting. Isopropyl alcohol, the rubbing alcohols, it's really not a good fuel.
It's cheap.
Use. It's cheap,
but you
it's,
get what you pay for, and you have stink, and it's just not good.
Yeah, but the denatured alcohol is a great alcohol to burn. And then the Everclear, which you buy at a liquor store, is super, super expensive, but it is probably the best.
It does really, really well.
Yeah.
I think our favorite is probably the Safe Heat again.
Yeah, it is. The Safe Heat, it's just so easy to store,
convenient,
right?
And easy.
And let me move to this next slide. So do you see how the Safe Heat comes in these flats? And each one of those cans is 6 hours of burn time, which means that you have 72 hours of burn time in that one flat. And okay, I know the prices have gone up. I think it's like $15 to $20 for that flat. So it's also not horribly expensive. It used to be like 12, but yeah, times have changed. Anyway, but seriously, the thing about the Safe Heat or alcohol is that it will take longer to cook. It's not like propane. It just takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Okay, the butane stoves. Now, most of these are not rated for indoor use. So if you bought one for camping, it probably cannot be used inside your house. This one is a sterno, and it was purchased at Sam's Club in the catering section. And that is, you want a catering stove. So we've got that video that talks all about this. And there's a few links in there to ones that you can buy that are rated to be used indoors. Otherwise, you have to ventilate, right? And if it's freezing outside, who really wants to open a window?
And during our 30 days of no electricity, no natural gas,
this
turned out to be a really great tool, because that gets right with the program. I mean, that gets hot in a hurry.
Yeah.
And so you have a little bit of an issue storing the canisters, but if you can store those safely, and obviously you don't want to have your whole garage full of those.
Yeah,
but,
no, they're little bombs.
Yeah, but
limited storage.
But wow, what a great tool.
And then we talked a little bit about our wood burning stove, but because we have this cook stove, it has a water reservoir on the right-hand side. It's just really nice for cooking. It's lousy for cooking in the summertime. Like I would never cook on it in the summertime, but for the wintertime, it's nice because it's dual purpose. Now this was kind of fun. So this is I want to call it a Camp Chef. It's Camp Chef brand, right?
Camp Chef, yep.
And it has the oven in the bottom and the burners on the top. It's a little bit awkward because we've got it on this cart. And so the burners are kind of high. And so, you kind of have to play with how you're going to do it that way. But it was really nice. There's very few things that you can, alternative forms of ways to be able to cook or to bake. And so right now, like, I think she's making crepes on there, but this worked really well. You can use like the propane camp stoves like you see in the lower left. They're not rated for indoor use. You can't bring them inside. None of these are rated for indoor use. So you need to use them outside or in, like we used it in the garage, but we were ventilating in the garage when we did that. And up in the upper left, okay, that is a beat up old Camp Chef, and it
just
many
keeps ticking.
years old.
It just keeps ticking. It stays outside all year round because we use it for canning. We use it for cooking, and especially in the summer, not so that we don't heat up the house.
It's a really good thing. Propane, the fuel, is easy to store, right? It stores forever. It's only limited by its container. And it just cooks really hot.
You just have to remember the one thing about propane is that it's heavier than air. Unlike natural gas, which will dissipate into the atmosphere, propane is heavier. So if you have this indoors and it's leaking, it's going to go wherever the low spot is, and it's just going to hang out there until something happens, a light switch or something, and it's going to cause a problem. So that is a precaution with propane.
Yeah, and there are devices that are rated for indoor use, but none of these are. Okay, now you might not think that you could use solar cooking in the winter, but think about Utah winters. Some days are beautiful and the sky is clear, and we have cooked in January with our solar oven. Yep. So it just depends on the day, but solar cooking is great because it's renewable. This
is probably my favorite of all the cooking devices.
The chocolate chip bread, or the
that too. But the solar cooking, it's just so much fun, and it's amazing. And some days you won't get enough to cook bread, but you could cook like a slow cooker. It'll hang out around 200 degrees, and you can just cook a stew in there all day. So and it takes, again, some playing with, and you have to figure out how to use it, but they are amazing. And
we've cooked turkeys in it and all kinds of stuff, but it can't be your primary or your only source.
Right.
It can't be. It has to be a backup. We were challenged to cook with as little fuel as possible. And so as we talked about it and did this challenge, we gathered sticks from our prunings in the orchard, just what was laying under there. And this is a rocket stove. And then we combined it with using the pressure cooker, so that, because the pressure cooker takes a lot less fuel to be able to do the same job. And then we took that pressure cooker, after it was just a gentle rock, we put it in a retained heat cooker, right? And put blankets and stuff around it. And that's how we were able to cook with just a few sticks and cook a meal for a lot of people. But rocket stoves are really incredible. In the lower left, you see the
Kelly kettle.
Kelly kettle.
Yeah.
You see the Kelly kettle, and I love the Kelly kettle. It's small, so you can only cook for a few people, but as a rocket stove, it's really, really good. And then you've got the Minuteman rocket stove up above there. And then everybody's favorite, right? Dutch oven cooking. One of the things that's fantastic about charcoal is that it will pretty much store forever if it's stored in an airtight container away from moisture. And you can do all kinds of beautiful things with charcoal. So just remember that, but remember that it emits more carbon monoxide than any other fuel that I'm aware of.
Definitely an outside, and you can see, if you look close here, you can see snow and ice. We're doing this in the middle of winter. And
he's in the shorts, of course.
Of course, that's my standard attire.
It is. All right, so you guys, I know that was like fire hose, right? But no problem, or no power, no problem. You totally have this.
Yeah.
You need to practice.
That's
right.
That is the key, is figuring it out now and practicing so that you are ready when you need it.
But on the website, the book talks about action plans, and on the website, that is where all the action plans are. So you can go up to that main menu where it says action plans and click on it. And for every chapter that's in the book, it helps you go through an action plan, so you can actually accomplish the things that we talked about in the book. And then our YouTube channel, you know what, there's a lot of videos. We would love it for you to view them and share them and help everybody kind of do a better job of getting prepared. We just started an Instagram account. It's been a few months now, but the Instagram is kind of fun because it's more like what's going on in our daily life. So we kind of tell you if we create a new video, but when you see my kitchen a mess and what I'm canning and what I'm doing, it's just kind of a little bit fun. So if you're into something like that, follow us on Instagram.
And let us know how we can help. our motto is you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And we want everyone to be part of the solution. Working together, we can get through anything. And that's the key, is everybody using their strengths, using their talents and their experience to bless lives.
Wow, I am so impressed.
Yeah.
You made it through the entire class.
And now for the question of the day. What are you doing to make sure you are more prepared this winter than you were last? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.